very, very interesting. Just as interesting right now, we're going to have Timothée Galvaire.
Explain what is ECI. ECI is a European Citizen Initiative. This process wants to encourage European citizens to engage in politics and raise their voice in favor of our policies they want to implement in the European Union. Could you tell us more about your project?
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me, and hi everyone. I'm going to start by asking you a few questions, so please be reactive, otherwise I will stop asking questions. Does anyone know here the average car fuel tax per liter in the EU? It's a tricky question.
0.
No, the car fuel tax, so it's 48 cents per liter. Second question, does anyone know now the average train fuel tax in the EU? It's 44 cents. And now, Pierre already spoiled my surprise, but last question is, do you know the average aviation fuel tax in the EU? Yes, it's 0. And do you know any other country in the world that already taxes kerosene for domestic flights? They're here. Canada, US, Japan, India, and also Saudi Arabia. So this is just to show you how absurd the current situation is. Because it's extremely surprising that still in 2019, the EU doesn't encourage young people and EU citizens to take trains instead of using the most carbon-intensive mode of transport, which is planes. And to understand, to go more into details into this very climate incompatible transport taxation, I invite you to take a look at this table. So a few things. There's no VAT on international plane tickets, and as I said, there's also no kerosene tax, which explains why it's extremely cheap. It became extremely cheap to fly in Europe. For example, I checked very recently, I could go from Brussels to Barcelona for 13 euros, 13 euros, whereas going there by train would have cost me over 120 euros. So I'm asking you, what kind of transport taxation do we want? What kind of image does it send to EU citizens? And this is very absurd, because if Europe wants to respect its climate objectives, the very least it could do is invest more in carbon-free mobility, and promote much more carbon-free mobility, instead of encouraging the use, again, of the most climate-damaging mode of transport. So a few things, a few consequences. So first of all, the aviation emissions in the EU are skyrocketing, plus 26% over the past 5 years. But the kerosene tax exemption also leads to other problems. A distortion of competition, obviously, because trains do not enjoy these tax advantages. It also creates too few incentives for airlines to reduce their emissions, because keeping kerosene tax-free does not encourage airlines and aircraft manufacturers to move away from kerosene with e-fuels, biofuels, and hydrogen, for example. But besides the climate injustice, this kerosene tax exemption is also a social injustice, because only a tiny minority of Europeans fly regularly, while all EU car drivers pay fuel taxes. But enough, now let's talk about money, because that's why we're here. And in order to reduce skyrocketing transport emissions, but also to promote green mobility, the EU must invest much more in the railway infrastructure. But for this, the EU obviously needs money. And I have a good news, because airlines owe European taxpayers a lot of money. The kerosene tax exemption for flights within the EU only leads to a shortfall of over 8 billion euros per year for public budgets. These 8 billion euros should be invested in green mobility instead of fueling an artificial demand for air travel. Taxation policies are very hard to change in the EU because they require the unanimous approval of all EU member states. But by pressuring the European Commission first and then our government, I believe that we can finally have a climate-compatible transport taxation. And this is why my roommates and I have launched this European Citizens Initiative to end this absurd kerosene tax exemption and to have new financial resources to invest in European railways. For those who don't know, European Citizens Initiative, as you recalled, it's a tool for anyone in the EU to propose an idea, and then if it gets 1 million support from EU citizens, then the Commission is invited to take action and to follow up with a legislative proposal. We've already collected 55,000 signatures, but now I need you, because we need much more. We need to reach this 1 million. So please help us make transport taxation fairer and greener. Sign first of all, and then share the petition everywhere you can. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, your newsletters, everywhere. And don't forget the address, fairosene.eu. It's fair plus the end of Fairosene, because as the saying goes, it is not sustainable if it is not fair. And you can also send me an email if you want to become our partner. And I'm also going to bring posters if you want to take pictures with us later. Thank you very much.
I wish you a lot of signature, and to be honest, I will add mine at the end of this conference. Last actor of this panel,